Hi and welcome to SCW here on YouTube.com. Thank you for choosing the channel and choosing the video. Please subscribe right now. Leave any comments in the comment section. Please like and share the video as well. It's time to have your say because it's time for the Q&A. Ask SCW is back once again answering your questions in the wrestling community. If you want to leave a question for the next episode, then please drop the hashtag AskSCW. You can do it in the comments here on YouTube, or you can get involved. You can see where to follow me on social media, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all should be covered on your page right about now. Just a quick shout out as well for the weekly podcast. This Week in Wrestling is available on the channel as of yesterday, and Bound for Glory review is up for you as well now, so go and check those out after this video, of course. First, we need to go through the questions that we have this week, and some great questions we have as well. And the first questions that we have this week, first one coming from Tire World Order. Speaking of Bound for Glory, thoughts on Deonna Purrazzo losing the title? That was a wild last-minute replacement. Thankfully, Impact had a story to replace Sub Sue in for the injured Kylie Ray. Yeah, it was all a bit of a confusing one, wasn't it? It really took everyone by surprise. I mean, looking at it, we thought that Kylie Ray was going to be challenging for the Knockouts Championship. It was almost sold as a no-show. What happened? Where was she? It felt like that no one knew where she was. Now, according to Brian Alvarez on F4W Online, suggestions that she was pulled last minute for the event due to an injury, an unknown injury, but hopefully won't keep her out too long. So let's hope that is what's happened here, and it's not something that's a bit more deeper than that. As for what's gone on itself, I mean, Deonna Purrazzo, for me, I was very disappointed she lost the championship, but at the same time, I felt that, like you said, they had a story, a replacement in line for the end. Su Yung coming in was something that I was really excited seeing. I was so happy she was coming back. My feeling was that if they'd booked things the way they were intending to, I think Deonna Purrazzo would have perhaps won the match over Kylie Ray, and Su Yung would have come in and made the save afterwards. But it doesn't look like, obviously, that's going to be the direction now. The interesting thing is how we can map everything together going forward. And, of course, Su Yung coming in had to be kept strong. I mean, if she'd have come in and lost, I think Su Yung immediately goes back to how she was as Susie down the pecking order to that lower card of the women's section. So I'm kind of glad that, in a way, she came in and won. But I also felt Deonna Purrazzo deserved this long, lengthy reign as champion. There's such a big buzz was put on Deonna Purrazzo of how great she is, the technical, master that she is. She's the best technical women's wrestler in the world, and they really made a big play on Deonna Purrazzo, being that she was special in Impact. And I thought, well, that meant she was going to be one of the longest Impact champions of all time, and it's not quite worked out that way. And I hope we can go back on this and she can recover. I mean, she was unprepared for this match, so she has that in her defense when she wants to perhaps try and get a rematch. For Kylie Ray, maybe she's been taken out by Su Yung. Maybe Su Yung isn't so nice after all. Maybe it's a scenario that Su Yung is annoyed with Kylie Ray because she didn't stop Susie from getting her arm broken, which brought out this Su Yung character back once again. Not only is she mad at Deonna Purrazzo for breaking the arm, and now she has her revenge, but she's also mad at Kylie Ray for letting it happen in the first place. So there's lots of different directions this can go. It still feels a bit messy after Bound for Glory, but at the same time, like you say, I'm very relieved that they were able to make an outcome that was good as well. I mean, let's look at it. I mean, the match between Su Yung and Deonna Purrazzo was solid, was definitely Bound for Glory worthy. I would argue that it's a shame we didn't have such a build for this return, but as you said, we had some backstory, so that at least was something of a positive. I'm going to come out of Bound for Glory with optimism, looking at the Knockouts division. We have 3 top contenders that could be. Any one of them are worthy of being the champion. Maybe we get a freeway when we get to Hard to Kill. Maybe we have a rematch in the meantime with Deonna and Su Yung. Maybe something with a dynamic with Kylie Ray when she can return, can get back in the Knockouts Championship picture. So let's see what happens. But certainly it was a big surprise, and there was a number of surprises on Bound for Glory. And for those who wish to, go and check out my Bound for Glory 2020 review. It's about 20 to 25 minutes long. It goes through everything in detail through Ken Shamrock's Hall of Fame induction, new champions. We had James Storm returning. Lots of things to dive into that was on that show. And yeah, I think overall, Bound for Glory, I think it delivered. And for me, this definitely, of your question here that we just talked about with Deonna and Su Yung and Kylie Ray, was definitely one of the big talking points of the night. Moving on to Ty's second question then. Are we seeing too many injuries in wrestling currently? Not pointing any fingers at any single promotion, it's happening all over. Is it the style now? Are people not training properly, or is it something else entirely? It's a really good question, that one, because it is happening a lot. It seems to be that whichever company you're talking about, there seems to be this knock-on effect. The dreaded X seems to come up more frequently than it used to, and especially for this week, it's been a very bad week for AEW when you look at it. Abaddon, Alex Reynolds, getting that dreaded sort of X sign if you want, and of course Ray Phoenix as well won his match but was pulled from continuing on in the AEW World Championship tournament. So it's been a bad week when you look at that all round. So it's one of them things. I sort of put it down to the idea of the style now. I think that everyone seems to give pay-per-view quality matches every single night. They want to give everything they've got. If you go back to the Last Ride documentary earlier this year with The Undertaker, one of his criticisms was that superstars seem to want to do what they can do to top what they did the show before. They want to seem to give everything every single opportunity, and while that is great for the fan, you're getting your money's worth every time you tune in, whether it's buying a pay-per-view, whether it's watching a weekly TV program. At the same time, sometimes you need to hold back a bit. I mean, let's take someone like Ricochet, for example. Not injured currently, but he does, the 630 off the top rope. He then does it off the top of the cage during War Games. What's next? How can you do 3 times off of there? How do you top what you're doing? It goes so far before either it becomes like, well, these guys are just spot monkeys, or at the same time, something like this happens where they get injured. So I think sometimes with certain things, you can't label it all under one. Some things come down to accidents. Some things come off timing, experience. It could be a number of different variables. But I would say that I think the style these days, I wouldn't say it's more reckless, but certainly it's more daredevil. And I think that when you look at that, compared to, say, like the 90s and 80s, a lot more matches were a lot more safer. I think sometimes a lot of the big spots were saved for angles, or big spots in matches were saved for big pay-per-views. And I think these days we get that weekly in every single TV show, whichever wrestling show you're watching. So I think that's what a lot of it seems to come down to. And I hope that, I wish in a way that I think we'd get a bit more of a slightly safer styling. I mean, I like, obviously, jaw dropped when watching a lot of pro wrestling each and every week. I think that the wrestling in-ring standards today is better than what we see, certainly with matches from the past. Maybe the selling isn't as strong today as it was back then, but certainly from an agility kind of standpoint, it's certainly stronger. But I think some of that needs to be held back a little bit, just so we have a slightly safer style. If we could sort of merge the old style of, like, selling moves better, being a bit safer, but also having, the agility and some of the things these guys actually can do today, mix those things together, I think you get some unbelievable matches, and hopefully a bit of a safer style going forward. The Kid, Mikey Wilkes, is here with our next question now, and Adam Pearce is clearly acting as an authority figure. If he gets named to Raw or SmackDown, who takes the other show? Great question, this one. I really like this question because it does bold the question, should WWE bring back GMs? Should we have general managers on the show once again? Adam Pearce is a WWE official, but let's be fair, I agree with you. He pretty much at this point is the GM for Raw and SmackDown. I'm surprised during the draft he wasn't just doing all the moves himself, to be fair, rather than being Fox against the USA Network. But if he was registered for one show, who should take the other show? And there's loads of different ideas of what could be done. I think general managers should come back in. I think they're great for the core of central storylines that play out throughout the show. They help, booking matches for pay-per-views or on the show. They're like that central point that just makes all those dots to storylines connect together. So, and I'd be quite happy for Adam Pearce to take the role for one of those shows, because I think he does hold himself quite well when we see him on TV. But who would take that other role? I did see in the comment section, actually, to your question, someone suggested Jamie Noble. I think that would be quite fun to see Noble there. He has been involved before with J&J Security, so I wouldn't be against that option. Being a Brit, I sometimes feel that you look at things with NXT, William Regal, his role as a general manager has never been questioned. I think his style works really well. So I'd like to see that type of general manager brought in. And being a Brit as well, I'm a little bit biased. I mean, you look at some of the GMs we've had previously. I think Drake Maverick for 205 Live did a great job. I think he would be of great use if he was on Raw or SmackDown, because he's entertaining as well. His stuff with Killian Dana right now, though, is quite thoroughly entertaining, and I want to see them pull that away at this point. Paige would be another shout that I think would be good. I think she did a great job on SmackDown previously, and obviously having that female general manager as well, I think is something that would be quite interesting as well, to see the dynamic of how that's used also. I know previously Paige has done it. I know we've had Vicky Guerrero in the past as well, but we've not had so many female general managers over the years. And like I say, I think Paige, hers was taken away from her when she was doing a fine job. I don't think anyone was calling for hers to be taken away. I think at the time, people didn't like Baron Corbin as GM of Raw, but Paige, unfortunately, was taken away at the same time also. Wade Barrett could do the job if he was taken away from commentary. I think maybe one minus point for Wade, though. He's taller than most of the roster, and I think WWE kind of likes to have their rosters looking larger than life, so that could go against the guy that's got bad news for most of the roster. You could also look at Nigel McGuinness. If they could eventually bring people over, I think McGuinness would be perfectly suited for that role. I mean, he's got previous experience with that with Ring of Honor, so that could be a role that would be perfect for him. And certainly being a part of Raw and SmackDown every week, I'm sure would be a dream of his maybe at some point down the line. Looking into the US market, someone that's currently on the roster who I think would be a great GM one day, but wouldn't want to see it today, would be MVP. I think one of the mistakes people make when they bring GMs in, especially in recent times, you look at Mick Foley, you look at Kurt Angle, they're a bit, you know, they're these bigger stars that we've had in WWE, not necessarily suited for the GM role. They're just people that you turn around and say, well, they've done it before, but they did it 20 years ago. Mick Foley's been thrown off the Hell in a Cell so many times that you just kind of think when they've been told they need to remember all these lines, you just felt a few fumbles coming here and there. So their roles and their time as GMs the second time round didn't quite work. Where for me, I look at MVP and think he's been phenomenal on the mic this year. I think he would do an awesome job if he was given that role as GM. One or two other shouts just to finish off because, hell, why not? I think Christian would be a great role for it. Potentially Mark Henry wouldn't be a bad GM either, just for outside of the box ideas also. But I'd like to know your thoughts of a GM. Who would be your GM if you can have one? Let me know in the comments below because I think it's a fascinating discussion. I think literally when it comes to GMs, I think there's quite a number of people that would be very suitable for the role. If you wanted me to pick one for you here today, I would go with Paige. But like I said, I think Drake Maverick would be my other shout because the guy's just got so much talent and charisma in himself, and it's quite fun to see a comical GM being brought in, and I think that it could be made to very good use. Noob and Co of our next questions now here on AskSCW. And do you think the Usos will be exiled by Roman after Hell in a Cell? Do you think the storyline between Seth and the Mysterios has dragged out for too long? Is Retribution getting buried by the Fiend? And do you think the booking is getting worse for Asuka after SummerSlam? Four fantastic questions for us there. Let's start off with the Roman Reigns one because I talked about that on This Week in Wrestling this week, which of course available on the channel. Please go and check it out after this particular video. But I don't think they will be the Usos. I think they'll still be a part of this bloodline with Roman Reigns. I think they're going to be forced to do things as we start to build this highly rumoured Roman Reigns stable. I think it's coming, and I think it's going to be genius. I think it plays so well into the storyline. The fact that Jay would have to almost admit defeat, that you know, after saying I quit a Hell in a Cell, he is the tribal chief. I've got to do what he tells me. At first, they don't want to do it, but they will do it. But after a little while, it could be almost like the Bellas twins storyline they had in like 2014, where, you know, Brie Bella didn't like what was going on, what Nikki was making her do, but after a while, she got into the role and she became that bad guy as well. And I think the Usos would be bad guys and would be great bad guys. I mean, they did it before in SmackDown when the brand started a few years ago. And I do think as well, they would do so well under the tutelage and management of Paul Heyman. And I believe in interviews as well this week, Jey Uso said that's something he would love. It certainly could be done very well as well at this point because Jey Uso would be doing it technically on his own because Jimmy Uso is not set to return to action until January. It could be what we drag this out till January where Jay's not really doing what he wants, and it gets to the point that by January when Jimmy comes in, that influence is there, twin magic comes, and then we've got the Roman Reigns dynasty. All these guys are heels, and the official heel turn happens, and we go into WrestleMania season, and Roman Reigns has got more strength behind him than ever, than whoever his opponent may be. It just makes a great dynamic for this, and yeah, I'm really excited to see how this is going to play out. As for Seth and the Mysterios, yes, it is dragging out too long, but what I would say is that when we have stories in WWE, I like conclusive finishes. So the fact they're all dragged onto SmackDown, I know a lot of people, they are disappointed and they're within their reason to feel so. I would like this dealt with as soon as possible, but Rey Mysterio has been out with an injury. I do think that this is why this hasn't had the conclusive finish yet. When Rey does come back in, I want it at the first pay-per-view possible, and then I want this to finish. If they want to continue with Murphy and Rollins afterwards, that is perfectly fine with me, but with Seth and the Mysterios, for me that needs to end, so then Rey and Dominic can go for those tag team championships. So for me, finish it as soon as possible, but needs the conclusive finish. When you look at things like the Lucha House Party in the draft, most people don't care about them. I don't really either, to be fair, but the fact I was watching SmackDown for weeks and weeks and weeks, seeing investment in the storyline of a Lucha House Party breakup and bad blood between Kalisto and Lince Dorado, I wanted to see a conclusive finish, and the fact that they were just split, put on different shows, feels very lackluster. So for me personally, I like stories to have a start, a middle, and a finish, even if that finish takes months and months and months. As for Retribution, yes, they are buried. I mean, let's be fair, they had a really bad Raw. Why wasn't the Hurt Business and Retribution put on Hell in a Cell to start with? It was a throwaway opener on Raw after being months and months of build. That could have easily been one of the matches that could have been on this pay-per-view. The Fiend afterwards comes in after, he was going to be, seemingly was going to be attacked by Retribution, comes back for his Retribution after, of course, disappearing with the lights coming out, appearing once the lights went out the second time, and destroyed all of Retribution on his own. 4-on-1, and the one coming out on top is never a good look. Let's go back to the League of Nations or whatever it was a few years ago, which we had with Wade Barrett's group with Sheamus and Rusev and Alberto Del Rio, and none of them could beat Roman Reigns even 4-on-1. That group was finished at that point onwards, and it feels with Retribution, it kind of is the same. So I don't know where they're going to go here with Retribution, and I feel really sad for a lot of the talent in there, because they are very talented people, especially Ali, who really felt like he was going to get this big opportunity here, and it just feels like, unfortunately, they're all going to be jobbed out for weeks and weeks to come. It's a really worrying sign, and I struggle to know where we're going to get a positive note going forward with this. Last but not least, let's talk about Asuka, and yeah, definitely, the Raw Women's Championship has not been seen in the same light since SummerSlam, of course, when Asuka beat Bayley. I don't know if it's a lack of challengers or just timing or what, but of course, Zelina Vega, that match was supposed to be on the kickoff, which thankfully got moved to the main show in the end for Clash of Champions. Asuka's not even on Hell in a Cell as of time of recording, that I've not seen anyway. We've only got 5 matches, I believe, for the show as of the time of recording, so I don't know what's going to happen there. I think that she should have been defending that championship on this show. Is the draft the reason for it? Potentially. We've got so many new faces and so many new rivalries we can have. Maybe WWE wanted to build a story rather than just throw away 1 or 2 of these contenders, which I would forgive in that circumstance. When we got the likes of Nikki Cross, Alexa Bliss, Lacey Evans in there, and we still get to have the matches with Peyton Royce as well properly for the championship. You look and say, well, we have new challenges to build, and maybe it could be better going forward after this pay-per-view. Now that all the house is in order, we've got the new Raw, we've got the new SmackDown, maybe the booking for Asuka will start getting better again. Next question coming from Sweet Chin Wag Podcast, and liking that name, by the way. Who would you like to see step into the US and IC title pictures now? This is a really good question, this one, because you look for the US and the IC title, and the roster's been changed around. We've really got some exciting talents and potential exciting mid-card matches going for these championships. I look at Raw and the United States Championship, and I really want that away from the Hurt Business, because Lashley, don't get me wrong, he's a great champion, he's great in the role, but at the same time, I kind of feel with this, feud-on-feud business going on, I'd like to see the belt come off of him. He could be more or less towards that main event area. I want to see those up-and-coming stars get into that picture. But as a match that I really want to see Keith Lee versus Lashley. I think for me, that is a way that you could recover Keith Lee's booking so far in WWE. Because for me, I do feel it's been disappointing, because you look and think with Keith Lee, yes, he has been in and around with those main event players, but he's not had so many victories. He's had so many losses by DQ. He lost to Braun Strowman this past week in a matter of minutes. We're kind of losing the momentum that we had with Keith Lee, and I think to put him in the mid-card area for now as the United States Champion, doing what they did like with the North American Championship in NXT, I think could be the right move to do for Keith Lee right now. Other challenges that you could have there as well on the Raw side, I mean, there's Matt Riddle involved there, Jeff Hardy's come over. Jeff Hardy's not an up-and-comer, but still, I think could make a good match there with him and Lashley, as well as that Angel Garza is on Raw, and I think Angel Garza will be a great future champion. We mentioned, though, the war between the two stables. Ali would be a great shout for United States Champion as well. I'd like to see that somewhere down the line. But there's loads of people that could be involved with the US title picture. It's just seeing who the right person to fit in now is. And for me, that person would be Keith Lee. As for SmackDown, it looks like after this week, the direction could be Daniel Bryan. And again, there's still lots of new up-and-comers that could be involved there. Apollo Crews now can go for the IC title on SmackDown. Kevin Owens could be reintroduced back into that program if him and Daniel Bryan will form that partnership that was teased this week, but I think Daniel Bryan is the right choice. I mean, him and Sami Zayn, yes, they faced earlier this year at WrestleMania, but Daniel Bryan is the workhorse and would be great for that Intercontinental Championship, defending it on a weekly basis, building new stars for the likes of Chad Gable and people like that. That would be really exciting to see. So for me, I would have Daniel Bryan as that challenger next, because Sami Zayn's work as well has been fantastic so far as IC champion, because he's found a way to defend his champion and be a dirty heel with these clever, dirty tactics so far. So I want to see that sort of thing continue. And I think that versus, Daniel Bryan, that workhorse trying to do it for the company, I think that can make a really good rivalry. I really, really do. Dylan Ketchell with the next question now, and since Shorty G has changed his name to Chad Gable, do you think that he would make his return to NXT? Well, I certainly wouldn't be against it. I mean, you look at Chad Gable, and if he's not going to be used well on Raw or SmackDown, throw him down to NXT. I think for the Cruiserweight division, he would be great. North American Championship picture, I think he'd get time and takeovers. I think he'd really stand out. I think he could really make a name down in NXT. So I wouldn't be against it. But I do think that he will remain on SmackDown. And my belief is eventually at some point during this next sort of 12 months, Daniel Bryan wants to build new stars. And I believe he is high on Chad Gable. And if you look at what Daniel Bryan did for Drew Gulak earlier this year, I think he wants to do that for Gable. And I really want to see that as well. If they were given a pay-per-view, maybe a B pay-per-view, something like TLC or something, and they're given 15, 20 minutes to go in the open of the show, go and steal it. Go and do what you got to do. I think these two would have a phenomenal match, and I think it could build something. We talk about the idea of the tease of Kevin Owens and Daniel Bryan having a team. If you want to have a team, why not Daniel Bryan and Chad Gable? And really build those and establish Gable as a star. When the team breaks up, Gable goes and wins and becomes, so it can carry on to go for the IC title. I'd really like to see Gable get a push in and amongst SmackDown. Is he going to be a world champion? I'm afraid not. But you know what? I think with this change, it certainly is positive, and I think the future certainly looks a bit more rosy for Chad Gable now going forward. Austin Whitley with our next question now, and do you think we will see a version of the original set at Halloween Havoc? I really do hope so. I mean, you look at previous NXT specials they've done. They did the Great American Bash earlier this year. That had a special set. In Your House had a very special set. So I really do hope they do this for the Halloween theme here with Halloween Havoc. I really want to see the pumpkins come out to play. Maybe a tombstone or two. It'd be interesting to see what they're going to do. They are in the Capitol Wrestling Center now, which could be the slight element that may change that, but I think Triple H knows the audience. I think he knows what's going to work. We've got Halloween Havoc. I think he knows we're expecting something special. NXT will want to pull out a big rating against AEW this week, so I expect him to go all out for this. So I'm really hopeful that we will get an original set, and I will say as well, I will have NXT Halloween Havoc predictions dropping on the channel in the next day or two, so make sure to hit the bell when you subscribe, hit the bell to all, and you'll know when that video is released first here on SCW. Mike, a Telehabs Mike with our next two questions now. What did you think of Pat McAfee returning, and do you think it will tie in with the Ridge Holland and Undisputed Era storyline? And second, what are your thoughts of the unexpected heel turn by Oney Lorcan and Danny Burch? I think it's a good thing, and it will better the tag team division. I did actually discuss a little bit of this on This Week in Wrestling this week, which do go and check this out after this video. Definitely worth checking out. It's available here on YouTube, also on podcast form as well, on Spotify and other great, podcasting platforms. But I agree. Looking at this, I think it's great for the tag team division, and I think it does link in. I love the interesting twist there with Ridge Holland as well, because Ridge Holland, of course, if he was meant to be a part of this, also wrestled Danny Burch on the road to all this happening. So is it a rewrite? Is it something that Ridge Holland would have been a part of, and that Pat McAfee, as the leader, was impressed with how Burch and Lorcan were? We'll have to wait and see. I can't wait for the reveal of this, and I can't wait to see where it's going to lead to. As for the Undisputed Era, I do think it's linked in with this storyline. It seems to be that maybe the Undisputed Era, all of them, will be turning babyface at this stage, and not just two of them, which for me, I'm quite happy with in one way, because I don't want to see the UE break up, if I'm being honest deep down. It's nice to see them do different stuff and different things, and maybe at one point, yeah, the Fatal 4-Way is something that would be special, but at the same time, I really want to see the explanation of this, and I do think Pat McAfee is probably going to use this in his explanation, that maybe he was discussing with Ridge Holland. He got Ridge Holland to do this, but once he saw what Lorcan and Burch could do, he got in their heads and they became a tandem. And then maybe when Ridge Holland does return somewhere down the line, if this storyline is still happening, we'll see what that leads to from there. But I'm very excited to see how and where this is actually going to go. And I do think it will improve the tag team division because Lorcan and Burch's heels is something different. They've got direction. It just makes them feel more important on the card as well. So, yeah, I think, all in all, I think this was a home run from NXT this week. It was definitely my favourite storyline from NXT from the show. And I want to tune into next week to find out what is going to happen. Irish Wrestling Entertainment with our next question for us now. What's the worst ever Hell in a Cell match, and why was it Seth versus The Fiend? I love the way you put that out there. Fantastic. But yeah, I mean, let's be fair. Let's look at that one and say, I mean, I have 3 that can come under it, but why this one technically is the worst is because you had built Raw that entire year around Seth Rollins to make him your biggest babyface. You brought The Fiend in as this new monster heel and put him in a championship match in his second match for, after destroying Finn Balor at SummerSlam. From being an attraction, he was put into a championship match that, if he wasn't going to win, was a no-way situation for WWE. Building that match, Seth Rollins, being your biggest babyface, was booked as the biggest coward. They ruined the Seth Rollins momentum. The fact that The Fiend as well was so over, no one wanted to see your biggest babyface win. The whole thing going in was a complete mess. And then to think that it was booked, kind of like how I'm going to mention now these other matches, a Hell in a Cell match needs to have a conclusive finish. You have all these weapons, you can be thrown off the cell, through the cell, and the match doesn't stop. But yet, for the last 2 years, matches have finished in false finishes, a no contest, a DQ. That makes no sense. Why is, hitting The Fiend with like a mallet in the face too far, but yet throwing someone off the top of Hell in a Cell not too far? Those things just don't make sense. So for me, that's why that one would be seen as the worst ever. On par with it has to be Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman, almost for the same reasons. Braun Strowman was built up, ready to be the Monster Among Men, that champion. He had the Money in the Bank briefcase. He should have done it without the briefcase, in my opinion. But then Brock Lesnar came in and destroyed both guys. The pay-per-view went off air. And at least, I suppose, with Seth and Fiend, there was some sort of story behind it. There was emotional investment in that match, where I had none really with Braun and Roman. And the fact that Brock came and ruined it just completely derailed it, the momentum for me. The other one I would go for is a real throwback, and it's back to August, 24th of August, 1998. Kane versus Mankind on Monday Night Raw. Again, finished on disqualification because Steve Austin came in and decided to stun everybody. These matches need to have conclusive finishes. For me, my least favourite kind of is Roman and Braun, because I look back at it and feel that I was most bored during those 3 of the Hell in a Cell matches. But if you look at it from a catastrophe standpoint, on a booking standpoint, yeah, I agree with you. Seth and The Fiend was the worst one they could have ever put together. It didn't need to be done. WWE booked themselves into a corner, and it was a complete mess. And in the momentum of it, Seth had to turn heel afterwards. The Fiend had to have the championship within the next pay-per-view to almost rescue his booking straight away. And then WWE ruined it again by making him lose to Goldberg, which I guess that's another answer for another week. But yeah, I may have to, actually, more I think of it, I think you're bang on. George Jones with our next question now, and George has got his own YouTube channel now, by the way, everyone. Jonesy Chats Wrestling, go and check him out. He's thrown a few videos out this week. He's still going to be involved helping out, though, here on SCW from time to time as well. But he asks, who could you see WWE signing from AEW within the next 5 years, and what impact would they have? Now, that is a very interesting question. For me personally, you have to look at AEW's roster and say that a lot of people that are in that roster have left WWE, and they've left there for a reason. So I don't think a lot of them have the intention of going back. If you look at sometimes as well, those sort of big time players like, the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, MJF, unless there's a massive blowout and argument, I don't see any of them going to WWE either, because the company's being built around them. This is what AEW represents. It is the competition. It is building the new stars for the future. And these all believe in the AEW product. So for me, it's going to be people that are not necessarily top of the card. It's going to be people that WWE feel they can make use of, that AEW haven't got the best out of, but not completely jobbed out either. You could look at someone like Joey Janela and say, right, okay, he's been jobbed out too much for what I believe WWE would want to say, I'm going to use him. Ironically, though, you say that, Pineapple Pete has already been involved with WWE. He apparently has been doing some stuff in NXT since he was stopping with AEW. But to properly answer your question, I'm going to go with 5 names that I think potentially in the next 5 years I could see trading from AEW to WWE, and here's my reasons for them why. First one is the Lucha Bros. I don't think that AEW has booked them to the potential that they could do. I was so happy this week they had their own standout match, had a chance to shine, and I think they did so. But I look at it with Fenix and Pentagon, or Penta, whatever you prefer. I do feel with them that they should have been booked better to this point in AEW for me. I think they should have been AEW Tag Team Champions. I could see use for them in WWE, particularly as their tag team division isn't booked as strongly as they could, and they could do with some new tag team tandems. AEW is flooded with tag teams, so I think that tag teams are the most likely that could say, hey, we're not cutting it here in AEW, we can do it in WWE. They could go to NXT, and I do think Penta and Fenix would do so well in NXT. I think that they would thrive there, and I think they'd thrive under the WWE banner as well. They couldn't be as violent as perhaps as they were in Lucha Underground, breaking arms and stuff, but I do think that they have a cool look, image, gimmick, and I do think that WWE would find a way of getting them over. Another tag team that could work could be Santana and Ortiz, because, I mean, they're kind of going through the similar thing that they're doing in AEW to Penta and to Fenix. When you look at it, they've had some great moments. Yes, they've been a part of the Inner Circle. They had an amazing match with the Best Friends the other week in the parking lot brawl, but where's their championship opportunities? Chris Jericho and Jake Hager are the ones that now are focusing on those tag team championships. It feels like Santana and Ortiz are kind of the afterthought when it comes to the Inner Circle. And that's not fun to say, but it's what I genuinely believe. And I do feel that for them and for their careers, they would be better suited out of the Inner Circle. Now, whether that means they go on their own in AEW or when their contracts come up, maybe they go to NXT, we'll have to wait and see. But for me, I think that they would be a tandem that definitely would be of use within WWE. Also, I think Wardlow is another top shout. Now, if you want to say stars that I think AEW will book really well, but someone I think WWE would have their eye on, of course, MJFs and people of those of the worlds would be, but an outside bet would be Wardlow, because I don't see him being booked as the champion, although I think he's got all the credentials to be champion. You looked at his match with Jungle Boy this week, he looked like a monster. He's got the look, he's in ring, he's very good. He's almost like what could be a future Brock Lesnar, Batista of this world. And he really does remind me of a young version of these kind of characters. I think if he gets the character side down, I think he could be booked as a monster. And I think he could be a future world champion. Whether it's in AEW or whether they don't, pull the trigger with him. You look at people like Kenny Omega, MJF, Hangman Page. Those people need to become world champion as well in AEW. And someone like Wardlow, he may get impatient. He may go to WWE. We'll have to wait and see. But those would be the names that I would give at this particular time. Next question comes from Dan the Man Williams. After Rey Fenix getting injured in his match with Pentagon, do you think this could lead to a storyline with them? Well, it very well could do, but what I liked about the match this week is it kind of felt into storyline, because Penta was very reluctant. They almost made it into the part of the match where Penta had this emotional side with his brother. He wanted to win the match, but also he didn't really want to see his brother hurt. So I would be surprised if this was turned into a one-on-one feud, although I do feel that Fenix is better as a babyface and Penta is better as a heel. So in some ways, it would be kind of interesting to see what they would be like if they were to go their separate ways and have a feud. But I don't see it happening. I see the Lucha Bros remaining together in AEW, remaining a part of Eddie Kingston's stable. So that's my feelings of currently with AEW, but I suppose never say never. I do want to see more use of the Lucha Brothers. As I said in the last question, I really want to see them towards the top of the AEW tag team division. I think that both of them have it within them to be top dogs of that division, and even as single stars, the TNT title towards the heavyweight championship, these guys need to be big time players in AEW, in my opinion. Next question is coming from the Dallas Cowboy fan, 2 to 4. If you could watch AEW with any wrestler, who would it be and why? Really interesting question, this one. I think it comes down to who does the best snacks when they're watching wrestling. If you've got some pizza, you've got some chips, you've got some, some chocolate or whatever, I'm down for it, and get the drinks up as well. We've got the cocktails flowing. I think that could sway my decision. Not necessarily a wrestler, but has definitely been in the ring. The person I really would want to watch it with would be Vince McMahon. I would really love to see his reaction to watching AEW, the way that they use their storylines in current wrestling world, and they actually get everybody over. When someone wins, they get over. Usually when someone loses, they get over. The way they build the storyline, it all makes sense, has continuity, and it shows that long-term booking works. And that's something that WWE is lacking in 2020. So Vince McMahon technically is my answer for this question, because I would like to see how he would react to seeing a promotion that is doing a great job so far in their first year, and with more time down the line, they are going to build their audience. They're not just going to have, these wins over NXT. I think they can rival Raw and SmackDown in, you know, the next 5 to 10 years. I can see it happening. If AEW continues the way they're doing, they're only going to grow and they're only going to get better. And if WWE continues the way they're doing, yes, the hardcores will remain, but that audience, it's not going to grow. It's not going to get back to the places they want to, and they will hit the panic mode. And there will come a point where, you know, you look at these TV services like Fox and the USA Network, they will look and see what AEW is doing. They'll look at the price and they'll say, that's more appealing. We don't have got to pay as much. We won't perhaps get as high of an audience yet, but we'll get our money's worth of getting this promotion rather than WWE, which you've got to pay big money for, but don't always get the results. Wrestling is great with our next question now. Motor City Machine Guns or the Young Bucks? That's a cool question, isn't it? Looking at it, I mean, it depends really when you look at the eras of both tag teams. I mean, for me, if I'm going all time, I bet me does have a soft spot for the Machine Guns, because I remember watching their matches, you know, back in, you know, old TNA, especially their series with Beer Money, when I think they're the best of 5 series. The stuff they did at the time really took my breath away. I thought they were innovative at that time in the tag team division. And their matches as well at that point, when they took on Generation Me, who of course were the Young Bucks back then, you turn around and say, well, you know, Motor City Machine Guns were head and shoulders above at that point. As we go into today, the Young Bucks, incredible. I mean, they've done some great stuff, and still currently have my match of the year from Revolution, the match with, of course, the tag team match with Kenny Omega and Hangman Page. The Young Bucks have done some great stuff in the last 12 to 18 months. We mentioned the Lucha Bros a couple of times on this video. Their matches at the early AEW pay-per-views with the Lucha Bros, absolutely spectacular. Particularly that ladder match, that they had, was just breathtaking. So for me, if I'm going overall, a bit of me finds it really hard to say, and both of them are in one of my favourite matches of all time as well. Just to give it a little shout out, Ladder Wars from Ring of Honor, I believe it's in 2016, when those two were in the ring with the Addiction as well. One of my favourite all time ladder style, TLC style matches, whatever you want to call it. But looking at it, it's really hard to pick. I'd say all time I'm going to go for the Machine Guns, but modern day, it's got to be the Bucks. Straight Edge Josh with our last question this week here on AskSCW. What's your least favourite wrestling song? One you personally think is tragic? Well, I've tried to look at this then from two different perspectives. I've gone for a wrestling song that we see on perhaps the weekly TV shows and pay-per-views, and one for in-ring competitors. So let's start in-ring competitors. Right to Censor has to take it for me. Just the sound of the alarm that you never wanted to hear, it fitted the gimmick perfectly, but as a song, it really, it was like, you know, nails on a blackboard. It was just, it was awful to listen to. So for me, that is going to take the worst song ever. One that I would say, actually, which is very topical and current, the brand new Raw theme is awful. I really hate it. I just feel myself, I usually start tuning to these shows and you get these new themes and you feel pumped and ready. You know, I like my rock and my metal. I don't mind hip-hop being involved in wrestling if it's used in the right context. When you look with certain superstars, like with the Usos theme, for example, works really well. But this theme just felt very generic, bland and boring, and I must admit, I felt myself, Raw is a long show anyway, but seeing this come on, I thought, oh god, I've got 3 hours of this, and it really didn't set the tone right going into the show. And what I also felt was, when Tom Phillips was trying to speak, he had the lyrics of this song, and he was almost fighting to hear which one you could hear more. So for me, I'm going to go for Right for Censor as Superstars for All Time. The new Raw theme, hopefully it will grow on me, but on first impressions, I thought it was awful. But that's all from me anyway this week on AskSCW. Hope you enjoyed the video as always. Make sure to go and check out Bound for Glory review. As well as that, also, This Week in Wrestling, that was uploaded yesterday. Please go and check that out. It's available here on YouTube. Also, podcast form, if that's easier for you as well, on Spotify, Apple, you know, whatever your favourite podcasting platform is. And I'm looking to put a Hell in a Cell review show out for you as well. Probably will be tomorrow. I can't see me watching it live. The clocks have changed here, which is benefiting me a little bit, but at the same time, I'd say it's probably safer that review will go on tomorrow and probably will include your Raw preview as well. NXT Halloween Havoc predictions will be coming out as well, probably between the next 48 hours. I recommend hitting the bell, setting the settings to all, you know, when each and every video is going to be released here on SCW. But thank you everyone that's been watching. Thank you as always for the support. Thank you to everyone that's asked their questions as well. You guys always make the Q&A so special each and every week, and I do thank you all very much. But thank you everyone for watching. Have yourselves a great day. I'll see you next time here on YouTube. Take care. All the best.